Hello everyone, it's me Present. Today I'm going to read S5 5081, The Last of the Mohicans, Chapter 8, A Bear to the Rescue. When the torch hit the floor and went out, all the Indians in the hut, it seemed, ran outside. Hayward thought he was alone in the hut with the dead Huron, but just then Uncas came close and spoke to him. Go, he said, and pushed him to the door of the hut. Hayward went out. He looked into some of the nearby huts to see if he could find Alice, but without success. Then he turned to look for the singing teacher, but Gamut was nowhere to be seen, so Hayward returned to the long hut with the other Indians. A torch burnt in the place again. Hayward sat down. Uncas stood in the middle of the hut as before. Then one of the older Hurons spoke to Hayward. An evil spirit lives in the wife of one of my young men. Can you frighten it away? I will try, replied Hayward. Just then a Huron warrior entered and sat down next to Hayward. Was Magua. The Hurons now lit a pipe, which they passed between them. Welcome, Magua, said an old chief. How was the hunting? We killed many moose. My men are bringing them to the village now. If Shaking Reed walks along the hunting path, he will meet them. They all fell silent. They heard the dead Huron's name. Shaking Reed's father spoke. Shaking Reed was a coward. His blood was pale. He's forgotten. He was no Huron. The Great Spirit has decided my family should end with me. Grimly the old man left the hut. Delawares have been here, said another of the chiefs to Magua, but we Hurons do not sleep. Delawares? Cried Magua angrily. Did you kill them? No, but one of them is a prisoner, said the old chief, pointing at the young warrior who still stood without moving in the middle of the hut. Magua got up and went over to look at the prisoner. The Mohican stared back at him, grim look on his face. Magua's face filled with a look of evil victory. Uncas, he cried. All the Indians in the hut cried out when they heard the name of their most hated enemy. The prisoner smiled to see that he was so well known. Mohican, you die, said Magua in English. Then he told the other Hurons about the fight at the Glen's waterfall, the death of so many fine Huron warriors. He told them about Hawkeye's attack and how that had ended. We killed many English, he finished, but the only way to pay for Huron dead is with the Indian blood, so we should kill this Mohican. All the Hurons in the hut were hungry for blood by now, and one tried to attack Uncas there, and then with his tomahawk, but Magua stopped him. Hayward watched all this, helpless, not knowing what to do. Be patient, my brothers. We mustn't kill him quickly tonight. No, let him die tomorrow under the strong light of the sun with all our women there to see his body shake like the coward that he is. Several Hurons came forward, tied Uncas' arms behind his back, and marched him from the long hut into a smaller prison hut next door. Once they had thrown the Mohican inside, 5 of them stood outside to guard the place. Now the chief, who had asked for Hayward's help with the sick woman, stood up and asked the white medicine man to go with him. Hayward followed him into the night. They crossed the village and went towards the nearby hill. Suddenly, in the path, they saw the dark figure of a bear. The Huron chief walked past the animal without fear. Hayward decided it was probably a bear which belonged to the tribe. As they passed it, the bear began to follow Hayward. He felt uncomfortable, especially as it began to growl. Finally, they reached the hillside, where the older chief opened the wooden door, and they entered the cave. Still, the bear followed. The cave that they went into was under the hill. There were a number of smaller rooms joined by passages. The chief led Hayward into one of these rooms, where the sick woman lay on a bed, with several Huron women around her. In the middle of these women was Gemut, the singing teacher. He began to sing a beautiful hymn. The bear joined him, growling with the music. Suddenly the Gemut stopped, said to Hayward, the woman you are searching for is near. Then he left the cave. Hayward went to the Huron woman lying on her bed. One look was enough to tell him that she was buried indeed. Again the bear growled, and every time Hayward moved towards her, he growled again. Our bear wants us to leave. Some things must stay secret, said the old chief. Come, you women, let us leave this white man to make a strong medicine that'll help our sister, who is so ill. Chief led the woman from the cave, and Hayward found himself alone with the sick woman and the bear. Animal came close. Hayward lifted its paws up to its head and pulled it off. Hayward's mouth fell up and then under the bear's head. See the well-known face of his old friend Hawkeye. Don't make a noise, said the scout. There are Hurons near. But how did you get here? Well, I left the Chingachgook an old mono hidden safely in one of the empty beaver's house. Then Uncas and I went off to the village of the Delaware. On the way, we met a group of Hurons and fought them. Uncas ran off after one of them, and that was the last I saw of him. He was brought here as a prisoner, said Hayward. I saw him arrive, but could do nothing to help him. I thought that he was a prisoner. That's why I came here. But what about your bear suit? Well, after shooting the rest of the Hurons, I came to this village and past the hut where the medicine man lives. I hit him over the head, tied him up, gagged him, and got into his bear suit. But where is Alice? I don't know. I couldn't find her. Don't you remember what Gamer said? The woman you're looking for is near. Didn't you understand? I believe he meant that Alice is here in one of the rooms in this cave. Then I must go to her at once. Wait, take off that face paint first. You don't want to frighten the girl. We can paint you again later. Cleaned the paint off his face and went to look for Alice. He's from Vanda in a nearby room. There's no time now to tell you everything, but we must leave the cave and find your father. He's weak and confused now, but before he became ill, I told him about my feelings for you, and he agreed to you marrying me. What do you say? Oh, Duncan, this is not a time to talk of things like that. Take me to my father first. Hayward was going to reply when he was interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find evil Magua standing in front of him. He had come into the cave by a different door. He now closed it and put sticks and stones in front of it so that it couldn't easily be opened again. Pale faces catch beavers, but Hurons catch English, he laughed. Seeing Magua so close, Alice fainted and fell to the floor. Then the bear, with its head inside, appeared and began to growl. Magua thought he was the medicine man and said, Fool, go to the woman and children. This is man's work. The bear stood up, its paws in the air, and came towards Magua. Suddenly it put its arms round him and held him close. Hayward tied his wrists and ankles with rope and gagged him. After that, Hayward and Hawkeye carried Alice to the room where the sick woman lay. They took the blanket from her bed, put it over Alice, and Hayward picked her up. Hawkeye explained his plan. Tell the Huron that the evil spirit has gone from the sick woman, that you want to take her into the forest to give us some different medicine. They went outside to the chief and said, the human warren, how is my wife? Asked the woman's worried husband. Spirit has left her and is a prisoner in the rocks, so you mustn't enter the cave. We are now going to the forest for medicine and will return later. Hawkeye told the others the way to the Delaware village. Now I must rescue Unka, he said, and he returned to the Huron village. He went to a little altar where he heard Gemil singing. He went straight in and Gemil stared at him. Don't you know me? He was still in the bear suit. It's me, Hawkeye. You must rescue Unka. Take me to his hut. Led Hawkeye to the prisoner where one of the guards spoke English. He explained that the medicine man wanted to blow on the prisoner to make sure by magic that he was a shaking coward the next day. The guards let them pass and moved away. They didn't want to be blown on. In the hut, Hawkeye untied Unkas and took off his bear suit. Put this on. Now, Mr. Singing Teacher, we must exchange clothes. You take my leather jacket and trouser. I'll take your hat and your cloak. Unkas quickly got into the bear suit, while Gamut and Hawk put on the new clothes. Then Hawkeye spoke to Gamut. You must lie down and pretend to be Unka. When they find you, the Hurons will be angry, but you will be safe, because they think the Great Spirit protects you. Will you help us? Of course. And he lay on the floor. Hawkeye and Unkas left the house with no problem. They were walking into the forest when suddenly they heard a cry from the Huron village. Unkas took off the bear suit, and Hawkeye pulled the two rifles from under a bush. Now we are ready for them, said the scout. Chapter 9, Magua, Huron Chief. After some time, the Huron guards who were standing near Unka's prison had decided they were no longer afraid of the medicine man's magic. They came close and looked in through the door at the prisoner. At first, Gamut had his back to them and his face pulled up. They believed he was Unka's. But then he straightened his legs and turned and they saw his face. At once they realized the trick which the singer and the others had played on them. They were very angry, but when Gamut started singing to stop himself from becoming frightened, They remembered that he was a fool. Instead of attacking him, they ran through the village and one the others in the tribe of the prisoners escaped. And 200 Hurons were awake. They began to run towards the wrong hut to discover what had happened. They looked around for Magua, but could find him nowhere. Some of the fastest warriors went to make sure that the enemy, the Delaware, were not attacking the village. Women and children ran about here and there, and the whole place was full of noise and hurried steps. At last, the older chiefs arrived, took their places in the middle of the long council hut, began to talk together in low voices. Then suddenly a group of Indians arrived with the village medicine man. He told them briefly how someone had hit him on the head and stolen his bear suit. Then the father of the sick woman told us his story, and he and 10 Hurons went off to the caves to see what they could find there. When they entered the place, they found the sick woman still on her bed. Although many thought they had seen the white man carry her to the forest, then the woman's father looked at her and saw that she was dead. "The Great Spirit is angry with us," he cried. One of the older Indians were going to reply when something long and dark rolled out of the next room in the cave into the middle of the room where they were standing. For a moment, no one knew what it was, but it sat up and they could see its angry face. They realized that it was Magua. Several warriors stepped forward and cut the ropes around his ankles and wrists, and the gag that stopped his mouth. Magua stood up, and an angry light shone from his eyes. It was lucky for them that Hawkeye and Hay were nowhere near him at that moment. Then an older chief spoke. "You have an enemy. Tell us where he is, and we will kill him for you. Let the Mohican die." There was a moment of silence, and then the same old chief replied, "He runs fast. My young men run after him." "Has he escaped?" asked Magua in a shocked voice. "An evil spirit came among us and closed our eyes to what was happening," replied the old man. "There was no evil spirit. It was Long Rifle." Many Hurons cried out at once when they heard that name so hateful to their ear. "Let us go to the council hut." He then led them to the long hut. When they were all in their places, they looked at Magua, and he began to speak. He told us sort of what had happened to him in the cave. Hawkeye's trick was now fully explained to the whole tribe. The Indians in the council hall were now angry and ready to listen to more of Magua's evil words. He cleverly worked on them, persuading them that it was time to attack the enemy and that they would have a great victory. They all agreed with him. It was decided Magua himself should be the chief who would lead them in this battle. It was a great moment for Magua, for by luck and cleverness he had now managed to get back all that he had lost when he left his tribe all those years before to work for the British. But he had once sent spies to the Delaware village and ordered his warriors to go to their huts, telling them to make themselves ready. Then he went to his own hut to prepare himself. Before the sun came up the next day, 20 Indians came to Magua. They carried rifles, but for the moment the paint on their faces spoke of peace, not war. Magua led them out of the village and past the cave. One of the Hurons had a beaver at his totem, so he stopped and spoke to this animal. "Cousins," he said in a friendly voice, "we protect you from hunters, and we will go on protecting you, so be grateful. Now help us. We're going to visit our old enemy, the Delaware, to see if Long Rifle and the Mohican Uncas are hiding with them. Give us your cleverness and help our tongues to work well when we speak to the Delaware chief." He spoke to his cousin, the beavers, and he was happy to see the dark heads appear from time to time above the water as they swam around in the lake. When they finished speaking, he also saw a large beaver had looked out briefly at him from a large or ruined lodge which he had thought was empty. It seemed to him a very lucky sign. The Hurons marched on towards the village of the Delaware. Nobody looked behind them. Nobody saw the big dark head again stare out from the door of the old beaver's lodge and watch them. It seemed strangely intelligent. Then, when the Hurons entered the forest, all was explained. Now Magua and the others were gone. A man in a beaver's mask crawled out of the ruined lodge. It was Chingachgook. The Delawares were allies of the French. And like the Huron, they had followed Montcalm into British lands. But when the French had most needed the help, Delawares had refused it. When Montcalm sent messages to them, the Delaware chiefs replied that their tomahawks could no longer cut well, and that they needed time to make them bright and sharp again. The French had decided it was better to keep the Delawares as allies for not helping them and not make them into enemies who were fighting against them. So they left things as they were. When the sun came up over the Delaware village, it shone down on a busy place. The woman ran from hut to hut. Some were preparing the morning meal, exchanged hurried whispers. But their sister, the warriors, sat around talking, rifles stood ready for the hunt. The one went hunting. Here and there, a man was cleaning his guns in a way which was strange. There were no enemies except wild animals. From time to time, one or another of the Delawares looked towards a large hut in the middle of the village. It seemed to contain something important for them. Into this came a figure. He pulled on a high rock at the edge of the village, lifted his arm to the sky, and then put his hand on chest in a sign of peace. The Delawares saw the sign and welcomed him. He climbed down from the rock and walked into the middle of the hut with many signs of peace to the Delaware, whom he met on the way. Silently he walked towards the Delaware chiefs. When he got close, they saw that he was Magua, the Huron chief. Welcome. If hard heart, as he had Maga shook hand. After this, the Delaware invited the Hurons to his hut to eat breakfast with him, and Magua accepted the invitation. Shomio was finished to begin talking again. Your tomahawks have been red with blood, said hard hair, but now they are clear and no longer sharp. The English are dead, and the Delawares are our neighbors. Hard lifted his hand in a sign of peace, but said nothing. Does my prisoner give you trouble? Continued the Huron. She is welcome, replied the Delaware. Magua said nothing for a while, and then he asked, have my Delaware brothers seen white men near their village? There was no answer. Magua took out some necklaces, earrings, and rings which his men had taken from the dead bodies of English women after the massacre at Fort Willoughby. Gave them to the Delaware chief and his warrior. More friendly, and Magua repeated his question. Has my brother seen strange moccasins in the forest? Yes, they have come here. The Delawares do not close the door to any man or woman. So you have long rifle with you then, said Magua. All the Delawares looked surprised to hear that this well-known enemy of France was in their camp. They called a meeting at the council, but 3 old chiefs came to lead it. The oldest of these was the great chief, Tamanan. From the hut in the middle of the village, the Munno's sister, Hayward, and Hawkeye were brought out. Which of them is Long Rifle? Asked the chief. I am. But Magua pointed at Hawkeye. Chief Tamanan asked, what brings the Huron to our camp? I come to take back what is mine. Cora now turned to Tamanan and asked, is Tamanan a father? Tamanan smiled a great smile of a whole trial. I ask nothing for myself. My mother is a great parents. Lived through hard times like your people, continued Cora. But please, as a father, send my sister back to her father, who is old and sick, who misses the daughter greatly. White men think that all the land is theirs. Tamanan, they think that Indians are less than dogs. They prefer the woman to be white, like the snow. But I say their time here will end one day. As winter changes to spring, what you say is true. But wait, you have not heard the words of the last of your prisoner? One of your own tribe. Let him come and speak to you before you agree to give Magua what he asked for. Bring this man before us, ordered Tamanan.